trading friends, and welcome back to Forex Focus, brought to you by IG. A real fun one today, looking at the Swiss franc, major pair against the US dollar, but maybe not the majorest of pairs, but you might think otherwise after we tie in this Swiss franc to the recent price action in gold. A lot of correlation between those two markets in recent trading. But let's start with dollar franc price action over the course of the last several months, and specifically the last week. Dollar down more than 100 pips versus the franc, now moving under 86 and eyeing those historic lows. If you know anything about Swiss franc trading, you'll know that it's one of the only major currencies that's been able to put a dent in the dollar in recent years. If you read the headlines, it's, dollar, dollar, dollar over yen and euro and pound. We had the euro dollar parity in recent years, historic highs for this US dollar. Not against the franc. The franc has been the one major currency, like I say, that has been beaten up on the dollar a little bit. And you look here at this chart, looks very different than dollar yen or the dollar in most other major pairs. So where is this price action coming from? Why is this so different? Well, this pair doesn't rely so much on interest rate differentials. Obviously, that's a part of it, but you'll look at the Swiss interest rate and it's pretty significantly lower than the US. So why is the US dollar depreciating against the Swiss franc? If they have lower interest rates, there should be more demand for dollars. Well, historically, the Swiss franc has actually had a little bit of a flight to quality lean. And for this, I want to bring in gold prices, because no coincidence at all that gold prices are once again nearing all-time highs of 2100, and that dollar franc is nearing lows once again, or the Swiss franc nearing highs against that dollar. And just a quick bit on gold prices, you can see in recent trade the bullish trend. It might not look like much, but earlier this week, trading above 2070 for a little bit of intraday trade, and closing above 2050 now a couple of times, looking at that 2100 level. You go back the last several years and you see that 2100 is the high for the last several years. And actually, you take all of the prices for gold futures in the history of gold futures, and 2100 is approximately the high in this market. So very close and rallying closer and closer to those all-time highs as U.S. yields are dropping, and gold obviously a non-interest bearing asset, so likes the fact that those interest-bearing assets like U.S. Treasuries, the yields are dropping there. And you're seeing a little bit of rise in global fear, not only economically, but obviously you have the Middle East war and the Russian-Ukrainian war as well. And so those situations can escalate and run up these gold prices every so often. But let's get into the correlation piece a little bit with the Swiss franc, because you can see these two, especially over the course of the last several months, are near mirror images, which is to say that gold is positively correlated to the Swiss franc, negatively correlated to dollar franc, as you see those dips in gold coinciding with dollar strength, and those gold resurgences to the highs coinciding with dollar weakness against this Swiss franc, which you haven't seen a lot of dollar weakness against any other major currencies, but this historically looking very different than your dollar yen or your euro dollar, so to speak. And especially recently, we've seen this trend of gold prices going up, dollar Swiss franc prices going down. Like I say, that positive correlation between gold and the Swiss franc. But let's take a look at some more correlations just to show you. These are the average 3-month correlations over the last year, and not necessarily the strongest, but keep in mind we're talking about two different asset classes, commodities and forex. You'd expect high correlations maybe between two different stocks or two different currencies against the dollar, But when you're talking about a negative 0.54 correlation between dollar franc and gold, that's pretty strong for a cross asset class correlation, and has been the strongest of the major pairs by this metric, although that euro's not too far behind it. I guess over the course of the last year, euro's seeing some strength when gold is seeing some strength, and vice versa. But that dollar franc, the strongest correlation here on the board. And remember that it's inverse, that gold has been positively correlated to Swiss franc, but if you're trading dollar franc and you think gold prices are going higher, then you might think dollar franc prices are going lower, and vice versa. Let's see where people think dollar franc prices are going. Here trading at IG, a whopping 85% of IG clients long the dollar, short the franc. Really, really overwhelming majority. Now, does this mean that the dollar franc has to move higher? Of course not. This market will do whatever it wants, but a lot of people long this dollar franc into its weakness, getting back towards its lows, historic lows against the Swiss franc. We'll see where the dollar goes from here. Like I say, one of the only major rivalries on the board against US dollar that's been able to see some appreciation of its own over the course of the last couple of years. But yeah, there you have it. Dollar franc and gold correlations. We'll see where both markets head in the near future.